Welcome, everyone, to the Asian Voices radio podcast, where you'll find real Asian American conversations, including all the topics you were too afraid to ask your Asian parents. I'm your host, Linda Schwartz, and our special guest joining us today is Krysada Phounsiri, a very talented Lao American artist and optical engineer. He's also a professional dancer, an award-winning poet, and an avid photographer. Welcome, Krysada. How are you today? I'm so excited to have you on.
Hi, Linda. Hello, everyone. Honored to share the space with you after so many years. Just feeling overall good and ready to rock.
Great. Awesome. I learned that you were not born here, which I was actually surprised to learn because I always thought that you were a first generation Lao. But can you tell me a little bit about your origin story?
Okay. So I was born in MUS.I, Laos. So Bokeo province. It's in the northwest of Laos. I was born in 1988. And my family came to America. My immediate family came to America like late 1989. So I wasn't even 2 years old before we ended up in San Diego. My aunts and uncles, about three or four of them were refugees. They were the ones that escaped during the war, and they were the ones that helped sponsor our family to come over here, kind of like a one-way ticket, if you will. And long story short, we became asylum seekers. And but it took a long while. So I was raised in San Diego like the majority of my life. So I always say that I'm born in Laos and raised in San Diego.
Nice.
That's my thing.
Very good. So you're multi-hyphenate, you're multi-talented. I want to know more about your artist journey because that's something that connects us. We're both writers. We met at the Lao Writers Summit. And when I met you, I was struck by, number one, just how striking you are as a person. Like your face is so striking. You're like in Lao, I would say you have like paek features.
Thank you.
For those of you who don't know what paek means, it's like in television or movies, that's the hero of the story. But I'm really interested in how you got into writing and poetry and dancing, because you have such a great balance. I mean, you're basically a physicist, right? And you also have so many creative leanings. Can you talk a little bit about, number one, how you ventured into your artist?
Yeah. So I think early on in my life, just trying to really figure who I was. I think I was trying to figure out in terms of being self-aware as a child, like who the hell I was, who am I? Like why is this world so strange? And what I mean is like first of all, it's language, right? Like growing up in Southeast San Diego, I grew up in a heavily Lao and Lu community. Lu is an ethnicity of Laos, for those that don't know. And so my family had this like mix of languages and accents and culture. And then on top of that, I'd go to school, right? And going to school was a completely different experience as well. So like, I think early on in my childhood, it was always very interesting to unpack. I was always a very curious person. And growing up where we come from, we didn't have much, like we didn't really have, obviously we didn't have ways to tap into worldly events or things that were happening around in our neighborhood, except, word of mouth and whatnot. And we didn't really have much to even, play with, right? So I was always an outdoor play in the streets kind of kid. Always loved the idea of like making fun from nothing or making something out of nothing, and in terms of like whatever's in front of us, right? And I think that curiosity as a child kind of led into how I wanted to explore the world and how I wanted to explore myself and my identity. So let's start with writing. going back to language, I really sucked at English. I spoke English, but we speak hood English too. Like we spoke whatever immigrant tongue we could match and whatever folks I went to school with. So it wasn't proper, if you will. And I struggled a lot with reading and writing. I was better at math. I know that sounds very stereotypical, but let's be honest, like from an immigrant perspective, reading and writing, like what the, that got me pretty nervous. I didn't do well at all. So I always had this weird relationship early on with writing and reading. But the thing is, when it came to writing, it was also a world for me to unpack away from reality. So I would write. I used to love a lot of fantasy, so I used to write stuff about dragons and Final Fantasy video games. Like I was always lost in video games as well because I always loved being in a different world. And even if my writing sucked, I still liked writing. So we had like a gift exchange in 6th grade. Long story short, I ended up with a notebook or like a writing book, and I hated it. I was like, there's so many cool other things that were out there, but it was like kind of like, was it like a white elephant gift exchange? And I ended up with a damn like notebook, and I was so pissed. But from there I was like, hey, let me just like journal. Let me just write poetry. Actually, let me just write poems. And that's what kind of started my writing. Again, I sucked at it for many, many years. It was just a way for me to unpack. And then it wasn't really until college, June Jordan, African American, really prominent, prolific, one of the most inspirational poets in my career. I took a class under her program at Cal, and that poetry class changed me because I had a really good mentor in writing. His name is Marcos Ramirez. I learned about poetic technique in a way I never thought I was. And then it was kind of like that the techniques and learning through that program enabled me to really understand that I need to write more about the stories of my folks, my community, about the Lao American diaspora, about the refugee experience. So that was kind of like, I know I skipped many years, but that writing has always been with me. And it was only until college that I was able to embrace that kind of writing and be okay with the fact that I sucked in like the conventional skills of English, if you
Sure.
will. With breaking, it was same thing. Like I was heavy into skateboarding actually. So I used to be a hardcore skater, skate in the streets, challenge people in the streets, playing skate, seeing who's the best, but just like enjoying the outdoors. And then all of a sudden there was like subliminal views and visuals of breaking, or what the mainstream calls break dancing, but we call it breaking. So anyway, I saw breaking in the malls, cousins on the block and people in the block were breaking slightly when it was like a fad in the 90s. And I kind of gravitated towards it more and more. And then at one point I used to skate to the library, Malcolm X library, because I didn't have internet at the time. And I would just look up books and internet stuff on breaking. And that's what kind of started me off a little bit. And then I just started like breaking and practicing on my own, and then watching videos and borrowing videos from the friends. And then, my dad would get me these VHS tapes, and then I would just watch, absorb, and just fall in love with the fact that I could use my body, and just like react to music. I always loved music. I did loud dancing when I was a child, like early on in my life. So that was like my first kind of first adventure into dancing, traditional loud dance. Then it was like, dancing to Michael Jackson, trying to imitate him. And then all of a sudden when breaking came along, I just absolutely fell in love with the music and the way that I could express myself physically, spiritually. And just, at first everyone's like, man, what the hell are you doing? Like all my buddies on the block, like, whoa, man, this is some goofy stuff, And then all of a sudden, like it just kind of struck to them too. And they got really attracted to it. And the rest is history. I've been breaking for 20 years, been competitive, been performing all over the world, traveling all over the world to compete. And it was like my first true like passion, love that I drove all the other stuff. And then with photography, photography was during the time that I danced in Vegas. So in 2012, kind of 2011, 2012-ish, I quit my regular job, and then I moved to Vegas with my younger brother, and we were part of the Jabbawockeez MUS.I.C show. They wanted folks to dance for their show, and in Vegas they needed folks. It's physically demanding to do a show with like a small cast of folks. So we went in there because Jabbawockeez was formed in San Diego, so we're friends with all of them, And I was like, oh, this is like the perfect time to explore the professional dance world on stage. So I did that for a year, but I also, because I was dancing so much, I needed another thing to fill me creatively, because I was always training and I was always dancing and I was always still like competing. It was so much part of my life that I also needed an escape from that. And photography came out. I always shot photos when I was a kid too. Always took the photos like on the field trips with disposable cameras, but never cared about technique. It was always about the memories and the impact and all of that. And long story short, I was like, hey, I asked my sister if I could buy her camera. So my brother and I bought her camera, and then I just started practicing. I was always into photographing people, and the feelings and the emotions that come out of like a photo was what I loved. And if you start seeing a pattern, I'm a very feely, emotional person when it comes to creating art. So I always have to feel something. And I think photography at that point in my life gave me something that the other two art forms that I practice did not. But it's good to have those three kind of work off each other.
Oh yeah.
So
To-
yeah, I mean, that's like the whole, like, hopefully it wasn't as condensed, but that was,
no,
my
I
journey.
thought that was really
Yeah.
great, because what I got out of your sharing was really that, from like you were just this holistic artist, from mental, physical to visual to spiritual. Like there's just this alignment in the way that you create, which is really fascinating to me, because I think that really, there's a balance too, because you're extremely smart too. So there has to, for me, I think that when you have that perfect balance, it expresses itself in these ways, right? Like you're incredibly intellectual because of what you've studied, and we can get more into that in a minute. But like just the aspect of your creative endeavors and the way that they express themselves or itself is just so profound in so many ways. I mean, you're really good at all of these things. I mean, you've won awards for your poetry. I mean, I've seen your photography and it's stunning. And you have won many awards for your dancing as well. Am I correct about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I love that. I love that you have expressed your passions to such a degree that you're basically putting the world on notice with your talent. So I appreciate that a lot. And I have actually a
Thank you.
really interesting fun fact about myself in breaking. I went to a high school in Santa Rosa, and the kids that I used to hang out with were break dancers. And every break, they would congregate in the corner, pump the music, and would break in the corners of the school. And
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
school, they would like bring out their linoleum. Did you ever travel with linoleum to break
I
dance?
stopped doing that in high school. My buddies would do that. But for me, I was the same kind of person. Like every lunch break, I would break, right? But I went from the grass to concrete. The concrete is what I
Oh
love.
my gosh.
I love dancing on concrete. That's just like my home.
That's so
I
fascinating.
didn't really, yeah. And then linoleum, bringing that around all the time, I was like, nah,
Yeah,
hell
it's
nah.
heavy. I
Yeah,
never
yeah,
understood it, but when you're passionate about something, you kind of have to bring your own dance floor sometimes.
for
Um,
sure. I always brought the boombox. I always brought the stereo. I was like, man,
it's
someone else
lighter.
bring some music. Yeah.
So let's talk about your academic career, because I'm really fascinated to learn about why you chose the avenue you chose. You're a physicist, basically. You went to school and you studied physics and astrophysics, and now you're an optical engineer. Talk about that.
Yeah. So I feel like you could relate to this too. Like growing up in the academic realm. In the school system, for me, I didn't really have a path, to be honest. Education was always in terms of immigrant parents, right? That are struggling to really keep us afloat, but have didn't really have an idea, if you will, about what kind of paths are there, career paths or paths in terms of getting through the education system, how we could get into college, etc. I mean, bless my parents. My dad did go to college in Laos in the Soviet Union, right? But that's vastly different than America, right? And then so anyway, I didn't really I really had to figure a lot of things on my own. One of them being the fact that what the hell to do in college, right? And it wasn't like I didn't ever want it to be an engineer or a doctor. I didn't know. I still don't know what the hell to do, to be honest. And I still think I'm an idiot. But I think what happened was as I was watching cartoons and playing video games, there was always like strange things about physics that would um, really attract me. Um, and what I mean is like there would be old school cartoons like Foghorn Leghorn from like I don't know Acme or Looney Tunes or whatever. And um, one episode would have this like kid writing equations, like a little chick writing equations, trying to figure out how to solve problems, and then solving those problems in very cartoonish ways, where it's like hiding in a trash can but ending up in a tree, or like hiding in a hole ending up in a different place, kind of like Schrodinger's cat kind of thing. Um, Ideas of momentum, velocity, and force while playing baseball, like just weird stuff. And I was like, oh, you could use math to figure this stuff out. I it never really crossed my mind to be like, oh, you could actually use like fundamental concepts in math to figure these things out. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then I read a book by Michio Kaku called Hyperdimensions in high school, and I think that's what really got me into astrophysics. Um, going back to being someone who's very curious about the world, I was also curious about the universe. Always loved space. Always loved the void of space in the universe, and like what could be out there, and like how minuscule we could be in this place in the universe. And that's what always got me. Like I always felt it was poetic, if you will, that there's so much we don't know. And through by the tail end of high school, that was what I wanted to major in, just because I wanted to understand it more. It was very much less of the idea of like I was going to figure out what to do as a job, and more about if I was going to go to college and I had to think about something, I would suffer. I would rather suffer in physics or astrophysics at first. I studied astrophysics, and then I had a partner in crime at Berkeley, and me and him would work together, and we convinced each other to do a double major in physics and astrophysics, because there was like it was like, hey, we got each other to work with, like, um, and it was just a few more classes, a few more lab classes, and I was like, hey, what the heck, like, let's do it. But I always felt like I definitely didn't feel like I was the brightest. We had each other to help and work with each other. I had other folks that did help me, but I think I struggled throughout the years of learning. But I still felt like it was beautiful to at least attempt to understand those things in the universe. And then I minored in poetry because I wanted to major in poetry, but they didn't have a program as a major. So, and then when I graduated, the recession was kind of like in its hot course, the housing market crashing and all that, and I kind of fell into um, the job market, like with everyone kind of laid off and no jobs. Like we had to short sell our home. Things were like kind of really difficult, so I just kind of moved back to San Diego to help out my family, because that's what I promised to do anyway. I didn't want to go to grad school because I felt like, well, this situation was going on at home, and I'm not going to wait. And I don't know if I really truly want to dedicate like 10 more years, 8 to 10 more years in astrophysics, now that I studied it and known like what's kind of out there, kind of. So it was very like, I wouldn't say misguided, but I just didn't really know and have a path. And then it was kind of like learning as I went. got my first job at like as a contractor for a biotech company, and then was doing like laser alignment and optics. And funny enough, I actually avoided optics in college. I wasn't really into it. I was like, oh, optics, like ray tracing, like understanding, fundamental properties of lenses and whatnot. And I was like, nah, like this, I just want to see stars and the cosmos, like black holes and theoretical physics. But yeah, I mean, I was aligning. I was just a technician. Like they were hiring everybody from different sectors because everyone was getting laid off. So they're getting like fresh college
Yeah.
students, engineers in the industry. And long story short, I stuck with that company until I quit to go to Vegas. And then a coworker was trying to watch me in Vegas, but I had quit to move back to San Diego. And he was asking if I needed a job again. I was like, yeah, sure. And I ended up in the optics department, and because they saw my experience in optical alignment and laser alignment, and then from there I was really learning on the job. I mean, optics is physics, or like there's a lot of physics behind what I do, so it kind of worked together. But it was pretty funny that I tried to avoid it, and now it's like all that I do as a career, And then yeah, I just leveled up as an engineer, learning a lot of engineering concepts, a lot of optical engineering concepts, a lot of design work, prototyping. Like, yeah, it's been a really
Interesting journey,
interesting,
it sounds
difficult.
like. Yeah.
Yeah,
So how to me it sounds like your optical engineer work might lend itself to your photography. Is there any connection there for you?
yeah, yeah. I always saw photography from an artist perspective. I always just wanted to take the photos, learn the technique, and create the art. And then as I'm moving along and really look into the design and the engineering behind cameras and lenses, you just learn to appreciate it more, and you learn about why there are certain design constraints, why certain lenses are more expensive than others, why they perform better than others. And yeah, it's really geeked me out on the technical realm. Yeah, it's awesome. Like um, it's awesome to learn about it. Like there are days where I think, hey, maybe I could design my own lens.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm definitely not there yet, but it's still good to be, again, just to be curious and try, eventually.
Yeah. So I have a question about your learnings as an astrophysicist. What is the meaning of life? Did you find that out in your studies? For yourself, at
No,
least?
no, I think being existential. I think, yeah, I mean, taking questions as an artist, right? Like exploring exploring who I am and exploring the world around me and how using art can connect folks and again share some kind of feeling, passion, feeling that kind of energy. I take the same kind of inspiration from trying to understand, like, how do stars collapse? Why is there so many voids in the universe? You know, what what kind of energy is out there? What kind of life forms can be out there? Like I don't obviously have a meaning to life. I think that the beauty is like for us to really unpack that, knowing all the realities and truths that are out there,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And when I say out there, I also mean conceptually as human beings, but also, yeah, living in a very physical
Mhm.
present world where we are bound by the laws of physics. Like, what does that really mean? And I honestly feel like I just go back to a mentality of I have one life to live, and if there's one thing I could do, it's I could choose to learn and just express myself completely,
Yes.
because it is very easy to go back to a very, we call it the ground state, like just a very relaxed state. And I don't want to be complacent in just being there. I think going back to balance, you got to have a lot of excitement
Yes.
in your life,
Yes.
and but also stay grounded in certain
Mhm.
things. So knowing how to move between the two is um, I say my path to existing, because I still use, as an artist, for me, I got to feel something,
Yeah,
right?
totally. That's so poetic. And speaking of poetry, can you share something from your book, Dancing is it Dances with Elephants or Dancing with Elephants?
Dance Among
Dance
Elephants.
Among Elephants. I'm sorry I
Yeah,
butchered
so
that. I should have known that. I apologize.
no worries. But yeah, just a quick little plug. Dance Among Elephants is my debut book, poetry book. I got a new book out called Every Passing Minute.
Oh,
I released that in late 2020, I think.
yeah. See,
It's
that's how long it's
um,
been. And I'm not on
yeah.
social media anymore. So I totally missed that announcement. It's up to you. You can read a poem from either one, whichever you feel is calling to you right at this moment. I
Oh yeah, I got the poem.
Okay, you got it.
Um, yeah, so the poem's called it's been really resonating with me right now. So Sabai Sabai
Mm.
is the title of the poem. Sabai Sabai. It means to relax, and I definitely in this world right now need to relax and kind of again come at peace with myself. So I guess this is the perfect thing to lead off of. So Sabai Sabai. You ever heard of a Lao party? Might be one going on right now. We Lao folks love that celebrating. Sifting through sunrise and slipping through sunset, we sing our favorite songs in our heads. It shortens time at work, cause we sabai sabai. We force ourselves to sabai through the weekdays, so when weekend come, we too sabai to be sabai, while beer loud gushes down as if a recession exists in our bellies. And we must stimulate our celebratory economy this weekend on our little cousin's birthday, where grandpas and grandmas get down Salavan style. Loud folks gotta play that music. Gives us an excuse to pick up microphones, clap our hands and wave our wrists around and dance like how our aunties teach us. When the right song come, when the right keys of the can flute lifts our stress out, our sleepless bodies, we always celebrating something, waiting for that weekend, coasting past the jobs we hate, or waiting to grab jobs we don't have. It don't matter if our elders can't speak English. They singing like they own the land, where their voices reach, rejoicing over all the smallest of happenings. And we all sabai real good.
Yeah,
Sabai, sabai.
sabai, sabai. I love it.
Yeah, thank
That's
you.
awesome. So, you know, one of the reasons why I brought you on this show is because I really wanted to start featuring more Lao American artists and community makers and shakers and movers and people who are out there, like you said, expressing yourself to your fullest capacity on while you're on this planet. And for those Lao Americans out there who are listening, what's a word of wisdom that you have for them?
Uh, for the Lao American folks listening, what what's words of wisdom?
Yeah, some words of wisdom to live their life
Um,
to the fullest, to make all their dreams come true.
I think, and quite honestly, I feel like we must learn to flow with what's in front of us, and not just say work hard and you'll succeed, but understand where we are in our current time and our place. Learn how to flow with it, like have our sabai lifestyle, but also learn and understand the techniques that will help you get to the places where you want to be.
Mhm.
And always find the wavelengths that you really want to resonate with, and know that not not everything is going to be the way you want it to be, but then again adapt, flow. Like we we come from that, right? We come from the river, right? The Mekong,
Yeah.
and we really need to understand like our own properties in our own lives, and learning how to make ourselves better. And please be proud and visible, and please like be love who you are seriously, because there's not too many of us out there, and
Yeah.
we all have a place by the river to be who we are.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Well, we're coming up to the top of our time together, and I just want to say thank you for coming on the show. I am so honored and I feel privileged to have you here and to be with you for this last half hour. Can you share with us where people can learn more about you and your art and all the things?
Okay. First off, thank you, Linda. Thank you, Kathleen, and ACMA, and all the folks that really are giving us the platform to speak our true selves. You could find me on Instagram at bboylancer. My photography is at Snap Pilots, spelled correctly, I suppose, Snap Pilots. And then you could also find my work in photography for Lao American happenings in at Lao America. So LAO America. And yeah, you can find me there. Also, Sahtu Press, Sahtu.press is the URL for the books of Lao American authors and whatnot. So yeah, stay connected. If you need me for anything, just reach out. And yeah, thank you, everyone.
Great.
Truly appreciate being here.
Awesome. I want to thank our guest, Krysada Phounsiri, for joining us today. If you have any suggestions for future guests or topics, we'd love to hear from you. Also, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, as well as follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Asian Voices Radio is produced by Asian Culture and Media Alliance, a nonprofit that empowers our API community with a voice through media arts. If you would like to support our program and make a donation, please visit AsianVoicesRadio.com. And thank you for listening. I'm Linda Schwartz. Please join us next week for another exciting and thought-provoking Asian Voices radio show. Until then, take care, everyone.